Anyway, how are you both?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm based in Sydney, so I'm not at locate like you, Luke.
No, I'm not at locate. I'm on the Gold Coast in the office.
Oh, okay. Yep.
All good, all good. Now, where are you, Chad? Are you're down Adelaide or?
Yeah, I am in Adelaide, but not at locate. A lot
Yeah,
of the office is though.
yeah. Oh, well, that's kind of it's a fairly big event, isn't it?
Yeah.
And again,
It's been good so far.
everyone's enjoying getting out to those things again.
Yeah.
Post COVID journey, that sort of stuff. And Chad, I know you. I've seen you on a few emails over the years, but I don't know if we've actually ever spoken. I can't remember. So nice to see you face to face.
Yeah, I think it's always been in text. So yeah, it is good.
Yeah. Which is the way of the world. And Dennis, nice to meet you too, of course.
Yeah, no. Look, thanks for reaching out. When Rob and Ellie were transitioning out of Aerometrex, so I took over from Ellie in terms of the strategic partnership space.
Yeah.
Both of them had mentioned from time to time to touch base with yourself.
Yeah.
But like a lot of things, we've got like 30 partners. My team of me, myself, and I keep them going. And obviously, we've had a restructure, and now we've got a little bit more clarity about MetroMap 2D products, MetroMap 3D, and LiDAR. So now it's actually much more clearer to be able to work with Dave and Chad and Gerard and Julia in the 3D team to obviously understand more about what you're doing as well. So, and obviously, I do appreciate yourself reaching out, because if you're ready to, at least let's get familiar and start the process, then at least we can sort of navigate our way together as well. So that'd be good.
Yeah, no, so that was sort of really the intent was, I guess two things. One, obviously we've had a long and enjoyable relationship with Rob when he was there, and indeed the rest of the team. And really over the COVID period, we had a bit of a change in direction where we sort of moved into this opportunity of looking at a SaaS solution. Sort of take the last take the last sort of last 4 decades of my industry knowledge and last sort of 20 years in the digital realm. The last, I guess, particularly 8 to 10 years with the Unreal Engine. Then of course Caesar's come on board, and then all the AWS stuff. So we went for this epic mega grant 3 years ago. It was a long time ago. It took 18 months to sort of get through the process. And whilst we asked for a lot, we got a little bit. But again, the guys at Epic were pretty they said it was very unusual for them to give a grant to somebody like us, and that it was a sort of good recognition that we were heading in the right direction. So that's pretty cool. So it's still very early days, to be honest, Dennis. But
that's okay.
I'm talking to people about some significant investment and partnering opportunities, and I just out of the wanting to be sensible with what I'm saying to those people, just sort of be worthwhile having, I guess, two things. One, to show you and Chad and indeed others, where we've got to with Sketchtime. And I said Rob and Aerometrex gave us a letter of support to Epic, which was good. We do a lot of work with your data sets, and to be honest, continually promote them as much as we promote Epic and Cesium and AWS, because it's fairly integral to what we're doing. But then again, as we move to the next layering of Sketchtime, I suppose there is then, and again, this is a discussion that doesn't need to happen today, and there's a lot more to think about. But I'm also just want to make you aware of what we're trying to do and get your cogs turning exactly around the opportunity for Aerometrex. Because in this particular case, I mean, our journey with Sketchtime, and you guys are a sophisticated audience. I mean, it is amazing how many people we talk to in this country, governments, developers, clients, that have never heard of Cesium, and very, very few of them have heard of you, of Aerometrex. Now, obviously, that's just the people we're talking to. There are plenty of people in those businesses that would know you, but part of our remit is just to open people's eyes to these data sets that are there.
Definitely.
And to make them available to them. What you guys have been able to do with your ship and clip stuff is just extraordinary. But again, we speak to so many, developers, architects, planners, engineers that have never seen it. And so, part of my remit is just educating them on what's there. And I'm a planner by trade. I haven't done much of it, probably 10 years, but we are all about educating our markets as to what's available, and to pull their heads out of the sand and to move into this immersive 3D world, and just move away from the static world. So I know you guys are all across that journey and what it means. But for most people, they think it's complicated, and they think it's difficult, and you got to have all this complex sort of machinery and software to run it. We want to flip that on its head. We want to take the Unreal Engine. We want to take cesium world terrain. We want to take AWS and basically turn it into a SaaS solution that a 6-year-old can use. And that's what the gaming engine does. But then, sorry, no.
And sorry to cut you off, Luke. I'm a town planner historically as well, and for my sins, I had to deal with climate change emergency declarations and all this sort of stuff and pandemic plans. But good news is I understand the idea, because literally yesterday, another colleague, Julia, and I met with 2 councils in Sydney, and we have to do our showcase of what the data can do.
Yes.
And it's like the missing piece is obviously Aerometrex doesn't want to be a consulting house, and we're sort of software agnostic, but we'd love to partner with yourself and other similar product vendors in a sense, because their question was, okay, we get this data in and we can show the community, but how do we do it, and who's going to train us, and who's going to do this and who's going to do that? And in my mind, I'm there going, well, I should learn more tomorrow, which is today. And what you've just said to me in the opening is literally, well, when we're out meeting people, we can now potentially, subject to how your team thinks, we can be able to use your viewer type technology and say, well, hey, council, if you're doing a local centre study, and do you want to sort of see existing condition versus, the approved projects that aren't built? Here's an interface that you can use to educate mum and dad community to not be afraid of change.
Absolutely. And again, you're absolutely right. There's so much miscommunication, errors, omissions, and there's this crazy world of, the amount of planning and discussion that still happens in 2D and even static 3D, and then the amount of words that are written to describe that. Again, we're all singing from the same hymn book. To be honest, we're a little, be honest, we're a little bit away from this thing from being, a publicly accessible product. But having said that, everything we're showing you here, we can deliver as part of our real-time world. So we've got our real-time world as our consultancy business. That's been delivering stuff like Crossview Rail and all those links that I showed you. What this is all about is ultimately putting all that in the hands of anyone. Now, we're not quite there yet. We're probably there in a very light mode. We're probably there in a viewer mode. But we're in the process of trying to get investment and capital to sort of take this further and to turn into a bit more of a bulletproof product that doesn't have too many bugs. And that is all web-based, because at the moment we are kind of like Twinmotion, it's a PC-based journey, although we're linking into the cesium ion stuff and that sort of stuff. But ultimately, this will all be web-based, and so that's the next chunk of big spend, is convert all this into a web journey, which is where we're going. But I guess today was 2 things. One is just to get once we show you this, just to get your thoughts and input and feedback as to what you think of it. And then I guess just secondly, again, just to get the cogs turning around, the ongoing business opportunities that I want to start to talk about. How do we ingest and license and engage with the Aerometrex data sets? And to be honest, there may well be others. I mean, we're following the same journey as Epic and Cesium and AWS, or certainly Epic and Cesium, where it's open source, it's open architecture. We're using the Unreal Engine. It's not our proprietary stuff. We're not going to lock away anything. We want to open it up to anyone and just give them the platform and allow them to do what they want to do. In a simple sense, people that don't have the technical capability, give them access to some fantastic data sets, such as all your sort of stuff. But then at the other end, people that can get in there and program the Unreal Engine, do all that sort of stuff, let them do whatever they want with it too. And who knows where that will go. And again, we're not we want to sort of be part of that collaborative sort of community globally that's trying to change the way we do things. Simple as that,
no. For me, one of the sort of practical use cases is the technical side at council can have all the sort of the Rolls-Royce platforms to do all their bits and pieces, but then when you go out to community and do the community stakeholder consultation, it's more this sort of more friendly interface viewer type product where they can't break the data or the analysis, but they can pan and move around, measure things, and with the photoreal, seeing the graffiti in the neighborhood, they go, oh, this isn't an artist's impression. This is really the truthful data set, which is rich. That's the bit that it always excites me about the 3D community is in the old days I'd go out with my plans and I'd take 20 questions and I'd answer the same question. And this is why what you're saying is don't be afraid about making it a simple interface. It's like in council there's going to be two camps. The technical hardcore need everything, and then me in my old planning hat would be like, well, I don't need that. I just give me something simple just to do the show and tell, and I don't want to do PowerPoint. This is better. This is better. I can just talk.
And you know, to my sense, that's what the real time platforms already. We can do all that. So if there's opportunities, absolutely keen to have a discussion.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
and obviously historically, Rob and Maddie Walker and Dave, and myself, I've got one partner where we've worked out a way to try and serve some 3D data sets to allow them to do what they need to do in their architectural business. So as a company, I don't think there'll be a headache. It's just more about trying to work out what is balanced for you and balanced for us. And you know, and I think, you know, a lot of the teammates that that you've met over the journey, that you know, we're always happy to try and find a way. It's never going to be like in council. No, it's going to be subject to working out how to do it.
Absolutely. And listen, Dan's sitting in Perth. It's got a good example too, that what we're also very heavily promoting is this next next era of virtual collaboration. You know, so you know, all this stuff will be available on an iPad. You know, you'll be able to hand over control, do all that sort of stuff. So Dan's Dan's in Perth, logging into our Gold Coast computer, pulling stuff out of Sydney AWS. So it's pretty cool as an example of how this can work virtually and how sort of smooth it can.
Exactly, and also as you might be aware, the some of the, depending on which councils you go to, some of them don't want to be data managers, data hosters. So this ability that Dan, and welcome Dan, like the fact that he's in Perth, Chad's in Adelaide, you're on the Gold Coast, I'm in Sydney, the data set's in Sydney, so to speak. That makes life easier for a CIO at council too, if they don't want to bring it all in hardcore and you know, at home. At least they can sort of look at this other option with you as well. So I can see the roadmap will eventually converge, and there'll be ways to you know, educate the planning and built environment community about you should be doing this in 3D. You can do 3D surveys now. So why aren't we actually getting architects to move away from 2D?
Oh, listen, we've probably held about 60 of these workshops like we're doing now. Of people around and you can see, you know, I'm going to be very blunt. We're promoting cesium and Aerometrex on the bottom there, and we talk about, you know, the Unreal Engine. And I said most people have never heard of any of this. And so part of our remit is just to say, fuck guys, you know, open your eyes and be aware, you know, and most of them are very receptive. But of course, as you well know, the majority, particularly of bloody Australians, they're so risk averse, you know. And I've found, you know, and Dan's just layering on data sets. So let me just run through our little screed, and then we might have a bit of a chit chat towards the end. So our whole journey is to move from the static 2D world to immersive 3D world. Use Cesium as the base, Unreal Engine as the UI and that sort of stuff, and then to tap into data sets such as Aerometrex, such as all this national data sets, such as all of the council data sets, all of the core logic data, all those data sets that are there, and to be able to do it at a push of a button, you know. And to do it easy. Now, our sort of, you know, licensing models, and again, I need to get advice and guidance around all this because it's, you know, it's a whole new world to me. Is that it's a little bit like Canva. You guys be familiar with Canva, the 2D guys? So you know, I mean, they started, you know, as a pretty small little business, but it's become pretty big. But you know, their whole journey is just to tap into resources that are there and to license and to, you know, buy what you need. Same thing here. Not everyone's going to want all the land use planning data. Not everyone's going to want all the Aerometrics data. Not everyone's going to want. So we're going to try to work out a way that in our, you know, online store, that depending on what data you want, there's different licensing models, you know. And again, that's another broader discussion. But all we wanted to do with this pilot is to just awaken people's eyes as to all this data is here and it's all available. But it's for most people, it's not accessible. So we want to flip that on its head. We're doing some piloting with Crossriver, for instance, in Brisbane. We're going to take all of their data, all of their GIS data, all of their BIM models. We're going to, you know, serve stuff up through S3, through, you know, Cesium Ion, and just make them aware of what you can do now, you know. So part of our initial journey with people is say, one, there's a spatially accurate world that you can play with now. You can go anywhere. Two, there's all this data that you can tap into. And three, once you sort of, and data that can be queried too, of course. So that's the next big sort of breakthrough, is the ability to query all this data, which again, for most people, they sort of thought, oh my God, it's just something they've never seen before. So there's a real education piece in this journey, to be perfectly frank. But Dan just is flying around the country looking at different data sets that are available. So this is the bus routes, right, Dan? I think, are they? Yeah.
And how do you like do you do your software development in-house or
no, it's all in-house, mate. It's all in-house.
Okay.
We've certainly got, all due respect, with some of our 3D work, we've got a really good bunch of, I'm going to call them outsourcers, but that's probably not the right word. We've got one of the guys in the office here has got a family overseas in another part of the world that we've set up a bit of an outsourcing base with,
Sure.
And again, it's just, all the hack work we try to, ship out if we can. But all the programming work's done in-house at the moment. And we find that it's, that's where the IP is, and we obviously want to keep all that at the moment. Should strategic partners and investors have a different view of that, that's fine, but at the moment it's all internal. So listen, let's keep moving. So once you've got the 3D world, once you've got the data, let's start to interact. So I mean, as I said, this is the planning part of me. This is the original concept with Sketchtime was, as soon as you've got an idea, let's start sketching, let's start interacting in 3D. But the reality is, this application will go and has the opportunity to go across any industry, whether it's mining, whether it's solar, whether it's environmental, whether it's bushfire, who knows? So Sketchtime means you can start to sketch in 3D. So, and in fairness, Dan's a highly skilled tech artist. He's not an urban designer. But he's starting to learn what a ridgeline is, and he's starting to learn what a gully is, and all that sort of stuff. But the fact that he's, sketching in 3D, this is the thing that really got Epic interested originally when we showed them, 3 years ago or 2 years ago, is the ability, to draw and sketch, in 3D, and to do it with this large data set, So Dan's just sort of sitting there in a place up at Caboolture, I think. But again, to come down to any level, any scale, and to be able to sketch and draw, and to do it remotely, virtually, that take snapshots, put the comments tools on, do all that sort of stuff, and be able to hand control over. So we then can say, hey, Chad, you want to take control, you draw what you want to draw, and then we've got all the version control happening, all that sort of stuff. So that's the Sketchtime journey. So to complement the Sketchtime journey, in the planning world, and I'm moving very fast through here, but Dan's used to me going pretty quick. And of course, you can sketch on photogrammetry, you can sketch in the built form stuff. We've got to have all these little planning tools, all these overlays, all these little widgets, and the whole journey here is that all those things that take a bit of time, how do we create a little widget to make it faster and easier? So this is simply about scale. This is, grid size. In the old days, we used to slide grid paper under the butter paper and draw over the top. Well, it's the same sort of thing. You do it in the real world. So we're going to have grid tools down. Let's just flick through some of the other planning tools while we're here. Lot calculator tools or walkable catchments, all these things that, are part of the process. And what we've got to do is create all these little widgets that will just be able to do this on the fly. So all the icons, so we're going to have a whole range of icons. There'll be planning icons, landscape icons, traffic icons that you can drag and drop and create, very early on, structure planning outcomes and all that sort of stuff in the virtual world, but in a world that's got a spatially accurate base to start with. Then we're going to have these little planning tools. So Dan's going to do some lot calculation tools. So for instance, if you've got a block of land, sorry, Dan, I'm going fast, I know, mate. But as somebody said to me the other day, one of the senior execs we were talking the other day, they said, God, Luke, this is so incredibly responsive and fast, So Dan's just doing his, developable land area, lots, just all this simple stuff. We're talking to KPMG the other day, and they were saying, God, we could take all of our quantity surveyor, rate cards, and you could just load this up with everything, which is absolutely true. This isn't to, as you correctly said at the start, this isn't to take away from that really fantastic software that's already there, that the technical people use and use very well. This is to provide a whole range of opportunities for people that aren't technical. And that's the key. That's the key.
And that's exactly right, Luke. That's the gap in the market where I was talking to basically the 2IC at council, the deputy mayor, and pretty much they know that they've got to go away from, analog type systems and sort of the Geekville only to try and bring the rest of us through to actually touch and play, because they've got their questions and they want to see it answered and visualized. And obviously in some variation to this, you probably can have different buildings that you can put in
Yeah,
at different
so
heights to show mum and
absolutely.
dads that the
Yeah,
impact is this or that.
Yeah. We'll
So,
get to all that. Absolutely right. So Dan's just, quickly
Yep.
splining out lots, and again, there'll be
Yep.
thousands and thousands of these things that you can do. I mean, if our sort of public release is, 100%, we're still at, we're still, I don't know, 10, 20%. We've got a long way to go.
Sure.
But here's Dan now doing just what she said, in the middle of nowhere, putting up a 10-story building, you know. And then you can, is that what you've done, Dan? Yeah. And then you can sort of go and do the costings on that. So again, we'll have a whole range of things. So putting in efficiencies, number of units, just, it's almost endless, to be honest. And it is endless. The only thing that is stopping us is imagination, and that's the other thing. We in this country are not very good at imagining. People are scared to do it. So I've been doing it all my life. I've got all these different industries and awards and stuff that we've been playing with. And I'm a dreamer. I get excited by it. We have a company called V2i Vision to Implementation. And this is just all future visioning and where our world can go. So Dan's now dragging and dropping 2D assets at scale in that area. So again, probably not necessarily relevant in the paddock in the middle of nowhere, but that's okay. So Dan, what is it? That's an Aldi shopping centre. Now, what we can also do.
Sorry to interrupt, Luke. Can you also add in a road?
Yeah, we'll get on that. Just hold your horses. Good Lord, man. So, geez, I love it. No, that's fine. We can. So here's a school. So, for instance, if your a local authority is planning a state school and a what's this, a primary school and football fields, there it is at scale, right?
Yep.
Now Dan, as you said, he's just decided obviously needs a road. Let's put a road in. Now the reality is that this is still early days. We'll actually develop a tool where you'll be able to design your own road. But people tell us, I think Oz Roads, there's 26 basic road types in Australia. So we'll get all those in there. Dan, just bring up a little thumbnail. There he is. So you'll select what you want and then you drag and drop and put it in. But we'll ultimately in our rollout give you a little tool to say, I want the verge this big, the footpath, the bikeway, the shoulder, all that sort of stuff. So and listen, we're still doing a lot of this in 427. We're obviously playing with 5.2 in terms of Unreal, but we just got to be strategic as to when we make the jump, because we know there's going to be a bit of mucking around. But there's all different roads type. Go down there, Dan, and have a look at that road you just put in. And listen, mate, while you're down there, now again, in fairness too, we're going to have another tool in a moment that will show you that we'll be able to sort of, flatten that side out. And so we don't have the lumps and bumps of the photogrammetry or the whatever. And eventually, where this will go is that we'll know that road has got a minimum grade or maximum grade or a minimum circumference or a minimum turning circle. And it'll highlight red, if it's above or below that. We'll end up tying all that sort of stuff in there. God only knows where this will go in years to come with AI and machine learning. And, I was talking to one of the big engineering firms the other day, and they were bold enough and brave enough to say, look, to be honest, the future of engineering won't be this stupid, complex way we'll have it. It'll be exactly this. We'll have a mesh, we'll drag a line, the machine learning and the AI stuff will recreate the mesh for us to give us the right whatever for the road that we're laying out, and that's where it all goes. So Dan's putting comments tools in here. It's all version controlled. Everything we're doing here is geo-referenced. So what we also want to be able to do as part of our open source journey is that we don't want to restrict anyone from using anything. So if somebody's using SketchUp or CAD, once you've played in this space, you can export all that back into CAD. It'll give you the center lines and all that sort of stuff. So you can build upon it or go both ways. So Dan, let's just stay in this space. What are you doing now, my friend? Oh, listen. So there's two journeys with 3D models. One is your ship and clip tool. Let's go and clip out a high-rise building in Brisbane that somebody knows, or indeed anywhere around the world. And this is where this other in the revenue opportunity for me with Aerometrex is this is still piling, but we're talking a couple of big architectural practices. We've never seen this. They said, well, if you're talking to a client and you know that you like a building that you've done in Melbourne and you want to show them what it kind of looks like on your site, we'll just go down Aerometrex, ship. It'll cost you $100. Bring it in. So we're doing all this stuff through S3 and ultimately I guess cesium ion is where we want to go. So Dan, what do you got there, mate?
Hospital.
Yeah. Maybe just but again, our journey with this is to have hundreds and thousands of assets, in a public world, but then to be able to allow people to have their own Sketchtime version and have their own assets. So you think of all the assets that Stocklands would have. You think of the hundreds of thousands of assets that data have both in digital form or indeed in photogrammetry form. and how easier that's going to be for them to do future broad brush planning, you know. So, you know, there's Dan, just that's the Marriott, where is it? Marriott down on the Gold Coast. So yeah, what we can also do is, you know, architects or designers can upload their SketchUp model to S3 or CZMI, and then we drag and drop and put them in, or we can geolocate it so it can go directly into the site if you know what you're doing there. So yeah, it's all this drag and drop stuff. So that's what's that, Dan?
That's the Helensvale train station design.
Yeah, that's the yeah, okay, yeah. So again, our journey is to have just thousands and thousands of these assets, you know, available, but then also for you to be able to plug in, if you want to bring ultimately, you know, your own assets or third-party assets, to be able to bring all those in, and to literally to go through and create these spatially accurate, you know, environments from day one. Hey Dan, let's get maybe up, let's go up into some, you know, up to Kauan or something, go to some photogrammetry and do the same thing and get some plants and trees and, you know. Maybe just plant out that road with trees, you know, again, sitting with council or whatever, saying, well, you know, community consultation, you know, it's, I can imagine what this will do to community consultation in time, to say, well, listen, we're going to open up this platform. How about you guys? Here's the suite of assets that we can use. What sort of trees would you like? I mean, I'm being a bit silly here, but you know, why not? You know,
yeah, I mean, also you provide the library of trees, and the council can decide what trees they're going to share with the community to actually do the charrette with the community.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because one thing that we're a bit slack on, I'm afraid, and it hasn't got any better, is I know people talk a lot about it, but I just don't see much of it, of this true sort of equitable engagement with the community. Things haven't changed. You know, there's charrettes you go to, there's drawings, there's little sticky notes, there's shit everywhere.
Yeah.
And I mean that respectfully. It's not a bad thing, but no, listen, Mr. Wilson, there's your sticky note up on the wall, mate. We hear you, you know. But to do it in a visual way, you know, and then to have the community, let's vote on this, you know, 90% love the trees. Well, let's go with the palm trees, you know. You know, so here's, you know, another at the other end of the scale, dragging and dropping just a grayscale, you know. Oh my God, Dan, that'll go over well. But again, you know, you can do all that. Maybe Dan, can you just go down and do some of the spline tool stuff on the ground? And I guess, you know, the beauty of the whole photogrammetry journey is to be able then to go down to the ground or any part of that environment and understand it from a visual impact, you know. So we're gonna have all the spline tools. So these are, Dan's gonna put in, what are you gonna put in, Dan? A noise barrier. There you go. He thinks that's noise. So let's go down to the road there. So to be honest, it's all the assets, it's all the process that currently make up our planning world and our environment, and to put it into a way that anyone can interact with and use, you know, to create an outcome, a concept very quickly. So our journey with, you know, this, oh, Dan, what have you done there? Our journey with, you know, I guess, Sketchtime, if you like, is to ultimately, it's a big vision to get this into schools for free. You know, we're already talking to AWS about certain, you know, strategies and opportunities there that they can have to help with that. To get it into universities, we're already, you know, we're doing some pilots with Bond at the moment down here. You know, you get into universities, and that is all about getting the students aware of Cesium, Unreal, AWS, Aerometrex, whatever. So it's second nature to them as they get into the workplace. You know,
it makes it all sticky. Yeah,
and get them playing with it. So it's almost endless, really. And because it's, you know, backed by the Epic Unreal Engine, the rate at which that's changing, what they're bringing on, the stuff, you know, Cesium are doing, you know, where you know, AWS is going with their, you know, cloud-based computer crunching, the ability to, you know, reduce costs of that too, which is obviously, you know, the next sort of big challenge is the cost of running these instances. But again, there's some pretty cool bits of technology coming out of places like TensorWorks and some of these other groups that are working with Unreal and AWS around, you know, making all this workable. So all the snapshot tools, all the animation tools, all the markup tools, you know, is all sort of there. Yeah, the solar tool.
Yeah.
I said that, the guys, that's a pretty fast overlay. But I know you guys sort of get all this.
Do you do you have like a overlooking privacy type of tool in there, or?
No, but we could. So
No,
again,
you
to be honest,
could.
we've got a list of tools a mile long.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things we're going to do, again, one of the visions that I have is that on our webpage, we'll have, what tool would you like? And we'll just go and develop it for you. And then we'll put it up there, you know, because it's not hard. So you mean like the little view line thing, you know?
Yeah, because you think about the other advantages. You go out to community to talk about, you know, the future, but from the function of what council has to do, the permit assessment, development application assessment. If you're then training up this young generation to use this tool to actually do the approval process, it would speed it up, because if you know
that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea. So you know, there's Dan just done a little, you know, he clipped out your photogrammetry and dropped on that building. There's the view you get from that building. I mean, you know what this is about. But you know, how powerful is that for non-technical people to understand the opportunity, you know? Well, it's not, I think it's fairly powerful, but as I quite often say, it doesn't matter what we think, it matters what you and the
well, it's just bringing the whole industry, you know, to this benchmark now, as opposed to what we just did in the past.
Yeah.
So
and then, you know, the whole idea is to then eventually, you know, all these models, and again, I'm not a technical person, I get confused with all the jargon and all that, not jargon, but all the language, but, you know, to have all the IFC sort of stuff and have it all queryable and all those sorts of things. And the other thing too is that there's some really good, you know, other stuff happening out there in the planning space with the Archie stars and the giraffe and the land checkers, all that sort of stuff. We just want to complement all that, you know. We're not trying to compete with all that. We're saying, well, once you've done your bit in giraffe, let's bring it into here, you know, and represent it in a different way or add to it, you know. You know, so there's Dan deciding wants to put a roundabout in there. And again, all we're doing now is just proof of concept stuff. You know, all this stuff is possible. You know, we've got still a long way to go with you know, getting it out to where we want it to be. But hey, Dan, let's, you know, flip over to San Francisco or to Mount Everest. I mean, you know, and then let's also just have a quick play with someone. I know you don't like using the Explore tools, but I know they're still work in progress. Tapping all the, you know, Google APIs, how to get to you know, the closest Woolworths or whatever. You know, it's again the only thing that's limiting us with all this is imagination, time, and dollars, because it's kind of endless, you know. So Dan, go and put the light rail. Oh, okay, where you want to go? Go put the oh, this is all that latest, you know, season stuff that they've released too. And again, just the rate at which that's changing too, you know. Again, the good old internet, you know. So I just want to drag and drop the light rail to the left there, Dan, on the airport. Put a light rail out at the airport. That's it. Is that an airport? I don't know what that is.
Look, it's an airport. It's got a runway coming through.
Yeah, looks like it. Yeah. So Dan's just doing his, you know, don't worry about the radiuses of the light rail. That's all right. So that's, you know, that's the Gold Coast light rail corridor for the tracks. You know, let's drop the model on. That's okay, Dan. And again, so someone like TMR or something like council will have their own, you know, their own assets, their own Sketchtime version that they can do all this, you know. And again, it's just part of that early planning stuff, early discussion stuff for space planning, you know. So guys, listen, you know, again, we could rattle on for forever, but that's probably, you know, an overview of what we're trying to do. We're trying to you know, demonstrate the benefit of working in a cesium world terrain, the benefit of using something like the Unreal Engine as the user interface and the grunt behind the complexity, but to make it really easy to use, and then the opportunity to tap into the vast range of wonderful data sets, such as, you know, what you guys are doing with you know, with your photogrammetry, LiDAR, all those sorts of things. Even like, I'll give a great example. I won't name names. I was speaking to a very senior person at a national development company just the other day. You know, one of the really big national development companies, you know, and he's involved in, you know, master plan residential communities. He didn't know what point cloud was. He didn't know what LiDAR was.
Yeah, no, that's
and that's just because he's never exposed, because that goes to one pillar of the organization. What he sees is the engineering mesh, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think,
Yeah.
God, so, where now up to there, big fella?
Happen.
Appen. Oh, that's down at, you've gone to, you're pulling in some point cloud data, Dan. Sorry, I'm just trying to work what you're trying to do.
Point cloud.
Yeah. So again, just for people, where you don't have photogrammetry or whatever, but they've gone and spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars probably on LiDAR to be able to display that via, streaming this via cesium ion so they can understand their site is extraordinary, and it adds a whole new value to the investment that their client's already made. They've got that point cloud data. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let's give it a whole new life. And that's the other journey that we're on. Let's take all that digital assets that you've used for, a particular reason in the process, but give it a whole new life to a whole new range of people, a part of that sort of return on investment strategy. Anything else, Dan? Hey, Dan, do you want to quickly just do, we did the volume tool, didn't we? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, it's Danny's dogs. But just, importing buildings, so SketchUp model, this is a site in Brisbane, again, coming in through S3, or there it is, just logs on. And to be able to do that and to give the client and the architects the ability to do their model in SketchUp, upload it to S3 or whatever it might be, and then to spit it out, put it into the build within, a minute. And then you have the incredible journey of the Omniverse and, Datasmith and all these other things, which sort of just changes this collaboration space. Again, it takes it to a whole new level if you're into that sort of stuff. Dan just doing some overlay stuff that you guys will be familiar with.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, I said that's that's a pretty fast, sharp overview of kind of where we're at. And I guess without oversimplifying it, the simple questions that we're asking people is, do you think we're onto something? Is it worth pursuing? And do you have any initial feedback?
Yeah, look, thank you, Luke and Dan. I guess from the use case perspective, there's obviously a need for it, because anecdotally for like a deputy general manager and a deputy mayor in a large local council in Sydney, who haven't been exposed to this technology and can see the benefit of it, they're now working out their business case to work out, who's going to fund it internally and which division's going to house it. And then it's not just about keeping it within the technical team space, it's actually getting it out to the mums and dads through stakeholder consultation processes. And this is where this sort of tool comes in handy, because obviously you need like the town planner or the marketing economic development officer at council to be able to drive this interface that you've been showing with some training, but it's not rocket science level of training required, and that makes it really attractive. And rather than death by PowerPoint, you can put in all the different data library of what you want to show the community on that panel on the side, let's say. So you basically are able to do a customized version for a level of council officer. And obviously this is supported by the technical team that sort of can help prepare it, and they can't break it, and they can visualize it, and they can relate to it, and they're not wasting time with the yellow post-it note on the wall on the big poster. So it's got to be a productivity saving that way as well. So I think you really are on the right path. And just thinking out loud from Aerometrex perspective, like if I have a simple triangle, I've got my client, I've got Aerometrex with the data agnostic solutions, and then there's a space here called consultant or solution vendor. So that's not me, so that's why I sort of can see the merit of trying to work out how you go to market collectively, but also make it mutually beneficial financially for everyone concerned.
Yeah. And again, that's just all part of, I guess, thanks, Dennis, appreciate, the positive response. And again, I'm just trying to get the cogs turning as to what the opportunities are, and my headspace is still very much wrapped up in, to be perfectly frank, the struggles of, running a small business and spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars on R&D and, you know, and the management of cash flow and all that sort of stuff.
Of course.
And you know, I know that you know, those, you know, there are people out there such as yourselves and your organization that, you know, that can just imagine other opportunities. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do at the moment, is just spark the imagination around what you think, you know, we could do, you know, with you guys, and how that could work. You know,
sure.
You know, the nice thing about being the owner and managing director and funder and whatever is that, you know, I can make decisions pretty quickly and pretty easily.
Sure.
I don't have to go back to the board.
No. In our case, we have to go to the executive who sponsor us to the board.
I know. I'm sure life is very different to where it was, you know, 5 years ago. And so listen, I know, Dan, you don't like doing this, but let's just, you know, I mean, I know this is nothing new for the guys, but, you know, the whole journey that we've got with Skill Kids and getting them engaged is that, you know, they just want to go and play in this space. And I think about it, the ability for Skill Kids now to just go and explore. I don't know where we are, Dan. Where are we?
We're in Oslo.
You know, just explore this and do things with it and create little movies. And so now let's go down to the ground and get some. I know you don't like using the explore tool because it's still work in progress, but you know, it's a game. So let's just go and get our boy down the ground there and get him moving around.
Yeah.
You get our character in there, Dan? No, you don't like that.
I'm third person.
Third person. So, you know, all the stuff you can do now, you know, let's get the helicopter in. Let's get all the fun stuff that you can do. I got to be, hey, Dan, I haven't told you this, but yeah, now he's going to fly it around if you want. Is that what you're going to do, Dan? I don't know. Oh, the helicopter. You know, again, it's, you know, this is the fun stuff of the epic world, you know, and this is where the kids want to go. Dan, I haven't told you this, but I spoke to, you know, I won't name names, our friend at Bond yesterday, who's doing a bit of testing of this internally. The first thing that he did, he didn't worry about all this other stuff. The first thing he did, Dan, was went to explore mode, got in the car and started to drive around. And I said to him, God, that's the last thing you should have done, because that's the thing that's got the most bugs in it. But it's interesting, you know, people that aren't in the planning, they just want to play, you know. Anyway, it's interesting. So, but again, this is just the beauty of what the Unreal Engine is going to enable us to do, whether it's helicopters or balloons or fighter jets or flying carpets or whatever, or monster truck. whatever. But because it's interesting. Interesting on a serious education piece. Our journey too is to help. One of the big things that the universities have said to us that, now again, in fairness, we know this isn't, geez, we know this isn't, you know, this is the least area that we've spent time on. But what they're telling us is that the kids these days have such a lack of awareness of spatial awareness, you know, and so to be able for them to explore these 3D spaces, to add solutions, to do all this sort of stuff is, you know, a really interesting breakthrough for them. So
and also there's a generation that's more non-linear in its thinking compared to maybe our education based on the score. So
So Dan, you can stop this. I know the explore mode stuff is not anywhere near.
It's like driving with Bailey and Chad Mount Panorama, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, we did one for Mount Panorama, Luke.
Yeah.
So,
oh, cool.
Yeah.
But again, you know, I'm sure it was a lot cleaner than this. But
but this is good just to, as you say, for all technology type companies like ourselves, yourself, getting sticky in the, you know, the geography space of a curriculum of high school, and then obviously it morphs into the university sector and TAFE sector is critical.
Yeah. So are you guys sort of, you know, again, I haven't really thought about it. Are you guys sort of in that space already?
It's like a lot of things. Getting the resources to go and map out and deliver on each sector is never straightforward, because obviously it's like we've all got competing priorities, and you've identified what I've identified, in the sense that you know, you employ young people into your business and they're familiar with the tools that they're being shown and taught, and so if you're part of industry and you're aligning with the education base, then it's easier and quicker to hire these younger graduates coming through, and hence for us, we know that we want to get Metro Map out into the education space because there's something beneficial for a geography class to play with our 2D data initially, but we haven't really put the effort to think about the 3D in terms of, because we don't do the, we can use any viewer tool, let's say, but obviously we're trying to be agnostic, but it makes more sense to go to market in a partnership framework with these sectors rather than putting the full burden on us and putting the full burden on you. And that's why partnerships can work, because you're all leveraging your strengths, and we've all got our weaknesses, but hopefully we minimize the weaknesses by working together because we offset it by being together. So
yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we're trying to do, because we and I mean, just on a side note, I'll maybe talk to you about this another time, is that we are looking to put a cesium grant in with Bond University down here around creating some micro-credential courses around basically using cesium as a spatial tool. But what we'd like to do is also, because it's Gold Coast based, is then use your data sets from the Gold Coast. So I'd certainly like to talk to you about that in terms of sponsoring that exercise, from a cesium point of view. So Dan's just again dropped a model in. This is Cross River Rail. Now, we've done all the full detail of this, but we just did an exercise yesterday because we're talking to Cross River Rail about just simply uploading one of the detailed models to. Is this through cesium, Dan? I get confused, mate.
Yeah, this is a cesium tile set of their station.
Yeah, so we're going to get their entire data set and stream it in by cesium for them, just to demo it. And again, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Like, it's good asset management stuff. So
yeah. It's another whole side of it. All right, Chad, any thoughts, mate?
Yeah, no, I was really impressed. I really liked some of maybe the simpler features, just being able to sketch on there. I can see that being really useful for like inquiry by design workshops and things like that, and just the collaboration piece. But yeah, all the tools look very useful, but I'd just say I think what you're doing already is keeping it simple and keeping it accessible to anyone to use rather than just a specialist, which be really powerful.
Thanks, Chad. And that, to be honest, that's the whole vision that I have, is that the specialists, the subject matter experts and their tools, they're fine. They're doing a great job. The challenge is the skill knowledge transfer between all that technical staff and the people that make the decision. And what I'm trying to do is get the decision makers involved in understanding that data earlier and in a non-technical way. So, I already know that if I was sitting with the decision makers across River Rail and we showed a BIM model in all of its glory and how complex it could look, it's almost off-putting. But if we can simplify it like we have here, I mean, obviously there's no materials, and then put this in the hands of the decision maker and say, listen, you explore yourself and come back with your questions where you're in control, it's a completely different mindset, So that's what we're trying to do, Chad. So I appreciate you picking that up, because that's fundamentally, I won't say a point of difference, but it's taking all this technical data, all this technical process, and making it easy and making it accessible, and not trying to do all the stuff that all that other stuff does, but to take all that other stuff that other stuff does and put it into a delivery mechanism that makes it accessible and understandable, All good. So Dennis, as I said, I'm going to try and reach out to who else?
I mean, if you reach out to Dave and Steve Masters, I guess. Because any consideration of sort of M&A and investment and things like that really sits with more Dave and Steve. I'm more so working with Chad and Dave in the context of once we come to the agreement of the data sets being served to yourself to then serve the university, that's sort of the space that I would support Chad and Dave. And obviously we'd advocate for a balanced, equitable outcome for both teams. So that's not a drama, really. And again, you've got the advantage of really knowing Aerometrex and Dave in particular as well. So he's aware of who you are and what you're doing. It's just really bringing them up to date and
Yes,
the next
yeah,
steps and the other opportunities that you see,
yeah,
and even highlighting that education sector
yeah,
piece as well would be handy
yeah,
for those two gentlemen to have from you directly. Obviously, Chad and I will take our notes from this and sort of provide a bit of an update back to Dave.
yeah,
And then from my partnership space, it's really just waiting to see what data sets we want to do and what the use case is, like serving it to education or other things too. But
yeah,
we're pretty, I mean, you know us, we're pretty flexible, you know, because you've
yeah,
worked with us on projects. So you're familiar with how we work in the project space. It's really more about trying to think about how we can do more about collaboration and partnering in a more formalized way, and also allowing you to leverage more, and also for us to feel comfortable that when we go and talk to these councils like we did yesterday, rather than than us sort of going, well, actually, we just do this and let you council work out what you want to do in terms of delivery to your community. It's like, actually, we've got a partner, maybe go and talk to them and then let you guys come and do your presentation. And so rather than it's a forced sell by us
yeah,
or by
yeah, yeah,
you, we've primed the waves in
yeah,
to go, come and talk to Luke's team.
yeah,
They'll show you a solution, and and keeping it easy to use, as Chad said, for that audience where they
yeah,
can play with the data directly rather than relying on Chad, yourself, myself, or Dan to
yeah,
drive the presentation. They can get up
yeah,
and move the controllers. They would
yeah,
love that, I think.
yeah, yeah. And I think for me, just again, it's early days, but
Yeah.
in terms of that sort of scenario, like if you had data sets, whether it's photogrammetry or point cloud, whatever, it'd be really cool just to, as part of that meeting, we just stream them as a tile set and say, well, here's those data sets that Aerometrex are talking about. This is what we
Yes.
can do and add to,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just,
Yeah. And that's
keep it really
yeah.
simple.
Yeah, and there's one where Chad and Gerard in our team have done the work for another larger city council, and
Yeah.
they've sort of politely said, we don't want to download the data. It's too big. Just give us the hard drive, please. But in terms of what you're demonstrating today, it just solves that headache as well
Yeah,
in a
it
different
does. It
way.
does.
For
Yeah.
certain councils that don't want to turn into data managers,
Yeah.
this solution that you've got to facilitate might be another attractive offering for some councils who don't want
Yeah.
to be data managers. So
Yeah, absolutely. Who knows? Who knows where it all goes? So listen, guys, thanks for the time.
okay,
Thanks for the
no,
feedback.
thank you.
Would you mind if I ping you a little three-question questionnaire, that
Yeah.
we're trying to get back to Epic, and it's just, there's really simple
Yeah.
questions like,
Yeah.
do you think this makes sense? Should we keep going? When they're really simple, high-level questions.
Yeah. Oh,
But we're
look,
just
even
trying
if
to
you
get some little.
even if you wanted to draft out a bit of a letter of support, I'm happy to try and massage something like that too if you need.
Well, listen, what I'll do, because to be honest, we had your original letter of support for the season,
Okay.
for the Epic grant, but
Yeah.
I will, if you're okay, send you one for our cesium ecosystem grant that we're going to go through, which is all around cesium ion. It's all around educating the world as to what that thing can do with data sets, whether it's photogrammetry or whether it's BIM models or whether it's whatever, point cloud data. That's something that we're trying to get in over the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. So that's there in the
No,
area.
if you send it through, look, Chad and I will check in with Dave and also check in with a few other general managers as well, and just make sure. And then also putting on my former councillor hat and all this other mumbo jumbo stuff. I'm pretty sure as an Aerometrex identity, we can sort of facilitate, a letter of support, because obviously it's supporting geospatial industry, foremost, and then secondary, there's an upside for sorting out the business relationship. But then, like all of us here, we need young people to get engaged in our society. They've had 3 years of crap in COVID, and here's something exciting, So.
Yeah. And again, I was quite, Dan, I was quite amazed that they said literally the first thing James did, who's a senior, personnel at this university, he wasn't interested in any of the overlays, the sketch time. He just jumped straight into driving around.
Yeah.
And he's a gamer.
Yeah.
He's a gamer.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I said, geez, that's the last thing you should have tested. But it was interesting. That's all he was interested in doing, Dan.
No.
No,
look, I've been impressed over 3 years with, we joke as a group that, COVID really kickstarted 3D more, So being able
Yeah.
to do the virtual inspections of a digital
Yeah.
twin, as they say,
Yeah.
of your
Yeah.
your pumping station out at Whoop Whoop, rather than being in the car for 2 hours to go and do it, if it's accurate, which we know we can do. So look, really appreciate your time, Luke. Chad and I will obviously go and do what we need to do from our side of the fence. Please feel free to reach out to Chad and I. But obviously you've got relationship with Dave, and obviously you've met Steve. So do what you need to do from that angle as well. And eventually it'll dovetail back in. So that's fine.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
All right, mate. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Dan, virtually.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks,
See ya.
guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Dan. We'll talk soon.
Okay.